I have been hyping up Brickworld Chicago for quite some time now, and it did not disappoint. The show had been on hold for the last 2 years, and it was so good to get back and see so many familiar faces, partake in some really fun activities, and walk through a room filled with thousands of custom creations. Brickworld was definitely back with a bang this year. There was 1,100 attendees from all the different countries you see listed there. Pretty insane stuff. On the public exposition portion of the event, we had 9,000 plus people come through the doors. It was great. You could tell a lot of people had been missing this show. It was a great chance just to meet up with some people that I hadn't seen, in some cases, in years.
I look very annoyed with the person taking the picture, which is strange because that is a selfie.
So in this video, it's going to be a pretty casual overlook of some of the amazing things that happened at the show, and I'm going to highlight some of my favorite builds walking around the convention floor, as that is probably the single greatest highlight of the show, besides meeting and seeing everyone, is seeing what they brought to the show. Because there are so many incredible builders out there, and people come from all over the world, as you saw, to display at this convention. Despite anyone being able to display at Brickworld Chicago, the level at which these builds are done remains consistently very, very high throughout the room. You don't see people just bringing and showcasing their kits. No, these are mocks that people have poured their heart and soul into. It's incredible to see some of these things that people have been working on probably for the last 3 years. The variety of builds is pretty incredible too. It's not just a bunch of Star Wars stuff. Even the Star Wars lugs didn't bring exclusively Star Wars stuff. There was a great amount of diversity from them. It wasn't just a bunch of castles either. There was probably what I would call an underrepresentation of castles compared to normal years. There was just so much creativity on display. Of course, I gravitate to the castles. You're going to see a lot of castle footage, but I promise you that the room was not dominated by castle in Star Wars, as you might expect at a LEGO convention. Oh my gosh, I'm just showing way too many castles now. The castles were great that were there. There's a big train presence. One of my favorite train displays with these chibi versions of classic LEGO train sets, including the Santa Fe, of course, and also the Emerald Knight, and the build my own train. It's just a clever and silly idea, and it definitely would have had my vote for best train if it had been nominated. One really fantastic build that stood out to me was Empire Lug's collaborative train layout, which was something I never would have expected from Empire Lug. Thankfully, it did go home with the trophy for best train layout just because it was incredibly done. So the train wrapped its way around a table filled with futuristic, medieval buildings and everything in between. There were some Star Wars references, of course, but I was just completely shocked by the level of detail and heart that had been put into this train layout. It's absolutely phenomenal stuff. Wish I got more footage. There's lots of funny builds around the room too, such as this graveyard of retired themes that definitely had me feeling a bit of nostalgia. Another highlight of the show, of course, is the great ball contraption, which is something you can watch for hours as balls go through these incredible mechanisms around and around the room. I'm continually surprised that these builders find new and exciting ways to transport these soccer balls from place to place. This was perhaps one of my favorite modules. Just so much going on. It's beautiful to watch. I was glad to see more Harry Potter builds than usual at this show. It always makes me happy, as that's something I gravitate towards very well. There's these wonderful, unique figures based on some of the more obscure figures from the book, which is great to see. The Leaky Cauldron represented in LEGO, which was one of my first Brickworld builds, and this great rendition of the 3 broomsticks in this very big Harry Potter layout. The Leftovers was another really cool build that I saw. Post-apocalyptic city, kind of like what they did in the LEGO movie too, but this one was a little bit more gorier, but still a great, great build. Again, I talk about the variety of builds on display, all different shapes and sizes. Should highlight this build here. The Iron Giant did go home with the award for best pop culture, I believe. His eyes light up too, which is absolutely fantastic. Really, really well done. Here's my display. So I had quite a number of mocks. The Endurance from a number of years back, the Sept of Baylor, which I meant to bring to the 2020 convention, a number of vignettes from Vin Week that I had been keeping around. I was glad to finally get the chance to show them all, and of course the clock tower was there as well. My big build for the year. Minecraft actually had a pretty big presence at the show. I forgot to record my display. I brought the first 6 modules from the Minecraft series, but there were plenty of other Minecraft stuff that I did remember to record. And some of the layouts were pretty nice. This is probably the best one, besides Pufferfish Preschool, of course. There's always lots of mosaics on display, and it's really cool to see the new techniques that are always being used. I've seen so many different bricks used to make mosaics. It's really cool. As you can see, some of these use lighting too, which is absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite builds in the room was the display directly across from mine, which was Rebel Lug's collaboration. Rebel Lug has tons of really good up-and-coming builders, and so when they put their mind to something, it doesn't surprise me that they can create some pretty incredible things. Though I imagine trying to organize a build like this that's so organic and free-flowing was probably pretty difficult to pull off. However, they did so seamlessly and created this really fascinating city with a little bit of every genre represented. It has a Star Wars flair to it, perhaps, but there's so much more to it. I love the parts usage throughout. It didn't win Best Group Layout, thank goodness, because Eurobricks had to win that, but it was really cool to see. I was also really surprised by the ships at the show. There were some really good sea vessels on display that lit up, were just massive, really great details on these things. Look at the deck of this thing, all this wonderful parts usage, just some really unique builds. I bet there's some sort of Lego shipbuilding community that just geeks out over these things. Honestly, that might be one of my biggest takeaways from Brickworld 2022, is that Lego ships are really, really cool. Simon brought some of his vignettes from Vin Week, which was really cool to see them in person. Absolutely loved the robot that he did, as well as this cyberpunk train subway station. It's really crazy stuff. Of course, we have to get to the Star Wars and spaceship builds of the room. There's a lot of great Star Wars stuff. There always is. There's a lot of great Star Wars builders out there. So it's just really cool seeing these really clean, polished layouts. A lot of the material that I wasn't familiar with. You know, people weren't just doing Star Destroyers and stuff. There's a lot more unique things. A build like this doesn't even need commentary. It speaks for itself. And that's the beauty of art, is it not? Beautiful. Another great group layout was Whistslug's castle layout. It was a lot more standard and rigid than the other 2 group layouts it was up against, but I think there's something to be said for that. The build is very clean, very consistent, and quite massive. There was almost directions to the thing while they were making this. I know a few of the builders who were part of this, and it's a really, really nice build. And having it at ground level allowed for a lot of the kids to see up and over the castle walls and see what was going on the inside. It is definitely one of those builds that you could walk around and enjoy for quite some time. There are so many other builds I didn't get to highlight, but we need to talk about the boat race. The boat race is a yearly event at Brickworld in which builders make completely Lego boats. You can only use Lego motors, and they head to the hotel pool and race them across. There is just a regular race, and there's also an obstacle course as well. Every year you see some crazy designs, like this one should not work, but it works really, really well. The boat race is just so entertaining. There's way too many people in this room all yelling and cheering for these boats. Here's a rescue mission that had to be made when one of the boats failed in the middle of the pool. What a hero. It always makes me every year want to get into Lego boat building, but I still haven't. Some of these guys are pros. As you can see, the person who won the race also happened to win the obstacle course as well. And here is his dramatic finish. These things look so hard to control. For his victory dance, he decided to jump in the pool, which I was fortunate enough to catch in 4K. The boat race is just vastly entertaining. If you get to the show, make sure you mark down that event and take the time to go to it. It is well worth it. Another event you don't want to miss at Brickworld is World of Lights. One of the nights every year, all the lights get shut off in the convention hall, and you get to see the creations brought to life. Every year, more and more people participate. It's almost a requirement at this point that your build should light up, even if it's just a little tiny bit. And there's some really impressive colors, and the builds really light up the room. A small build competition I take part in every year is called Dirty Buildster, and the idea is that you bring 2 bags, each with 100 random parts, ideally parts that you want nothing to do with, parts that would be considered junk. Like, I'm not damaged parts or anything, but I'm talking about weird bionicle bits, Technic pieces you're never going to use, obscure specialized molds from years past. And everyone who participates in this challenge gets in a circle, and you pass 1 bag to your right and 1 bag to your left, and you end up with 2 bags of some other people's 100 random parts, and you have to build something with it. And it is just so much fun. It inspires so much creativity. So the clips shown here are what all the participants came up with. This is my build. This is my brother's, and Audrey made a build as well. Super fun challenge. If you ever go to Brickworld, be sure to bring 2 bags with 100 crappy parts, because you definitely want to participate in this one. Another really interesting challenge I took part of was the Cube Games, put on by Marcus and Simon. This has become sort of an annual thing at the show from what I understand, but this is definitely my first time getting roped into it. Simon and Marcus pitted 5 different lugs against each other, and I joined in the fun as part of the Eurobricks team. And they had us go through some ridiculous challenges. The first challenge, we had to craft some sort of die that would be used in future challenges. We were given pretty much no parameters. Basically, we were only told that the die had to have 6 sides with numbers on them. The numbers could be whatever we want. They could be represented however we wanted them to be. Eurobricks, thinking we were very funny and clever, decided to do a die with 5 zeros and 1 1. We called it the Lucky Die. The next die was easily the best one in the room, though.
All right, behold the world's most problematic die. 6 sides, all very difficult numbers to use in any functional capacity for games. We have C, the coefficient of the speed of light, 0, tau, pi, E, and everyone's favorite, the square root of -1, I.
2 builders from each team had to volunteer to go for the second round before we knew what it was, and it wasn't pretty. The number that we rolled on the die dictated how many parts we could add to a build as we followed along in an instruction booklet, and you had to alternate between you and your teammate. Needless to say, Eurobricks definitely got last in that one, as we got to place 1 part every 6 rolls on average. The third challenge utilized the die in a different way. We were given a Super Mario kit, out of which we were to construct a catapult. And using that catapult, whoever's die went the furthest would win the challenge. And it was a mixed bag all around for everybody. And Eurobricks again. But then that's when our luck turned. So for the next challenge, we were given a creator kit. And before you would turn the page in the instruction manual, you would roll your die. And that's how many pages you would have to skip Naturally, when you have a die of 0 and 1s, you don't have to skip any pages. So it was smooth sailing for Ben in Eurobricks. The only thing we had to do was prevent other teams from trying to read our instruction manual and report back to their teams, some of which had infinity on their cube, meaning they had to skip to the very end of the instruction manual. For the last challenge, we were given a Brickhead set and a Marvel mech and instructed to use the cube to create some sort of character.
One lady who swallowed a spider, and now he's pissed! She ripped 4 of his legs off, and now he's back for revenge.
Us at Eurobricks thought we were thinking outside the box when we decided to do a spider, but there were actually 2 more spider-like characters out there. Ours, however, was the best of the spider characters, but it wasn't enough to pull the W. In fact, Eurobricks got dead last in the contest, but it was still quite a bit of fun.
So last place is Eurobricks, first time competing. You put on a strong effort. I feel like your dice kind of hurt you a lot, but you did very well despite those odds. We had to actually do a tiebreaker because you were actually tied for last. Yeah! With the other team that typically finishes last, Rebel Lug. Wow, so they actually scored consistently. Low, but still, third place is Brick Nerd, aka Miscellaneous Team. Pulled together a great team. Great job. Sure, drum roll. Second place, Orphan Lug, which means reigning champs and Nova Lug wins again. Congratulations. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Hope you had fun.
No.
And then, of course, there was the Demolition Derby rematch. So a bunch of people from Season 2 decided to make motorized cars and go head-to-head again at Brickworld. We had new Season 2 participants this time around, and obviously the builders had a lot more time to develop their cars. No one put quite as much thought into their car as Zach did, though. The Purple Punisher version 2 was a tank, which is what Zach is known for, and he was flipping cars within the first 15 seconds of the round.
Don is stuck! Oh! Oh! No, 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 no! Oh, no!
I didn't quite get the memo that we were starting the derby, and so I showed up a bit late.
Oh no! I got this! What is this?
And then I accidentally dropped the Sunshine Wagon on the Purple Punisher V2. Poor Sunshine Wagon just can't catch a break. Should have had my brother drive this round too. And of course, that only left the big pink Duplo castle, Moto's beautiful creation, as pretty much the winner by default.
How do you feel, Caleb? Why does this always happen to me?
In the beautiful spirit of destruction, Moto's victory dance involved him dropping 10 pounds of Duplo on what little remained of our sad, sad cars. What a beautiful sight to see. At least it was really easy to sort out whose brick was whose. While that did not go 100% to plan, I think a lot of people really had a good time with the Demolition Derby. Thankfully, both Zach and Wayne and my brother and myself were able to put our cars back together. You know what they say, third time's a charm, so when we inevitably do this thing for a third time, I'm sure the Sunshine Wagon will come out on top. So there is a small taste of some of the shenanigans that went down at Brickworld 2022. There's just so much that happens at this convention, and it is so awesome to be a part of. If you've not been able to get down to the show yet, I cannot recommend it more. It is worth quite the hike. As you saw, people come from around the world to attend this thing. And if you have been to the convention before, I hope this stirred up some fond memories in you. It's, as far as LEGO things go, the best the world has to offer. It really is. There's nothing quite like it. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great life, and I'll see you next time.